Anyone who wanted to learn to draw and learn art has been told to start with a box. Draw the box and rotate it. But how is drawing the box going to help us learn how to draw faces, bodies, and everything else that we want to draw? Well, it is just teaching us the concept of observation and construction. Let me show you how. This is the concept that can help us turn something simple like this into this, or something more complex like this into this. Like everyone else, I did actually start learning on how to draw the box. And when I first started, I would just look at the lines and the contour and I would just think if I can copy those things, I would learn how to draw. But that way of thinking is very limiting and it really creates more challenges when the shapes that we want to draw are a bit more complicated than just the simple box. So while I was learning through drawabox.com, it got me to think in terms of forms and shapes rather than just simple lines. It is the idea of thinking in 3D and adding that 3D shapes into a 2D piece of paper. It may sound complicated to some, but that is why we start with a simple box. Then I moved to drawing cylinders and cones, doing the same exact exercise, drawing them onto the piece of paper and then rotating them. And one of the great exercises that helps build that capacity and that skill is to draw the lines that are in the back, draw the shapes that can't be even seen to create that 3D form of the piece. This is a very simple exercise, yet very powerful in developing this skill. So I didn't know this yet, but learning these simple forms was actually the key to improving and learning anything else in art. But of course, drawing boxes and cylinders, simple shapes is not very exciting. So I got bored pretty quickly with it and I just wanted to move on to the next subject. So I went on to learning how to draw the head and the figure and drawing these things very quickly without really grasping the idea of construction and shapes 100%. So when I started studying the head, the Loomis method was the first thing that came up. It's a very popular way of learning how to draw the head, and I thought I should try and learn that. So if I think of the Loomis method of simple ratios and contour of the face, it's very easy to draw it and learn it. It's very easy for me to just think, make a circle, divide it in half, do 3 equal lines, and start adding the eyes, nose, and mouth in the appropriate places. But what happens when the angle changes? What happens when the shape of the nose changes? Well, here is where learning how to observe and construct the different parts of the face comes in place. You know, if I learn the construction of the nose, it would be easier for me to just draw it and rotate it in any angle I want and replicate that shape of the nose. Same thing with the mouth, with the ears, with the eyes, and everything else in the face. We can really simplify everything in terms of boxes, cylinders, and spheres and put them in the appropriate places on the face, and that's how we can create the head and construct it using shapes instead of simple lines. Then if we think this way, it would be easier for us to rotate these simple shapes in the different angles, lower angle, upper angle, and all these different rotations of the head, and we'll be able to draw the head and construct it a lot better than just simply copying. And I very quickly learned the same thing when I started learning how to draw the figure. The figure drawing is very complicated, anatomy is very complex. The body moves, flexes, stretches, and rotates in so many different angles that simply trying to copy is not the best way of learning it. So when simplifying the figure, we can use boxes and cylinders again here. We can really learn how to construct the body using these simple shapes. And once we get comfortable with drawing the figure in these simple shapes, we can slowly learn about the anatomy and slowly observe the different muscles and start adding them into the construction that we had. And these construction and observation skills really come hand in hand together to learn figure drawing and anatomy very well in this case. And one of the great methods also of observation is to look at the areas that there is no drawing. For example, if we're trying to draw the body, it's good to look at the areas that are blank. What shape does that make? And maybe that will help us place different parts in the right places as well. So use the observation skill in many different ways to construct the body, to put things in the right places, and to look at the vacant space or the empty space between different things so we can place things appropriately. Okay, so let's put this entire concept of observation and construction into practice. We can try to draw this old PlayStation controller, and if we look at it, we can simplify it into boxes and cylinders. You can see how simple it can be if we just think of it just like that. So you can see I added the center as the box and then the sides as cylinders, and then we can just construct from there. And then the handles that come off of the box and the cylinders, we can think of those as cones. You know, I know it's not completely perfect, but if we think of it as a cone that has been cut out at the end and then rounded, then it can give us that shape. Yes, I know there's more to it, but if we think of this as those simplified shape, it can get us most of the way. So now when we come to actually drawing it, we can think of it the same way. So we started with the box again, and then added the cylinders, we added a few cylinders, and then we move on, you know, to the cones again, and really think about that. Think about the construction, think about those simple shapes, and you can see how simple it can be by just adding boxes, cylinders, and cones, and we have this entire shape done for the most part. And then we can go in and add the more details and add more, you know, softer edges and more curves into it. So this all sounds great, and one of the challenges that I face, and I think a lot of people face, is that we think by just simply drawing a few boxes, we know and we understand this skill, and we straight move to the more complicated subjects like figure drawing, and we try and learn that right away. But I've realized that I need to take a step back. I need to take a step back and draw simpler shapes. Go back and take simple shapes and start drawing them and rotating them. Really practice that skill of observation and construction, and by practicing that more and more, I can improve all of my other skills when it comes to portrait drawings, figure drawing, and try and rotate things, and anything else, even environment drawing. It all comes together by simply learning the skills of observation and construction. So I am inviting you, just like I did, to take a step back. Take a step back and start practicing simpler shapes again. Do something that you see around the house or you know is simpler, and try and draw it and construct it and then rotate it. That practice will really help you develop the skills better, and then you can slowly bring those skills back into your portrait and figure drawing or anything else that you like. Starting simple is one of the best ways to improve, and then we can start adding complexity to anything that we draw. So always start simple and start adding complexity and more complicated shapes as you go along.